Hello, friends, and welcome back to AFW2's Ambassador Chat. My name is Jason David. This week, we have the pleasure of speaking with Tony Russell, not just an adventurer, but definitely a good friend and fellow AFW2 ambassador. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you, Chief. It's great to be here.
So here's the thing. This conversation that we're having right now is kind of unorthodox, right? Normally, there's someone on the staff that interviews an ambassador, but what they have us doing, which I find wildly humorous, and it's kind of cool for us, is ambassador to ambassadors and finding out our stories, I think because we talk to each other better.
Absolutely, that peer-to-peer contact is something that can't be replaced. And
Well, we can make fun of each other and it's not awkward. Or is it?
well, sometimes it can be, but letting us run wild is probably the best way to get the real story.
Okay, so speaking of not being wild, right? Let's kind of get down to brass tacks and talk about why you're here today. So you are an AFW2 alumni, and you are also a AFW2 ambassador. So my question for you is, what would you like to share about your story so that people know you just a little better?
Well, Chief, my story is really a long one, but as we get into it, my biggest thing that's on my heart right now is for warriors to find their why. That thing that is their purpose that's going to help them be resilient, that's going to help them push through the hard times when they come. And we know that they all will come for us in different ways, in ways that we probably will never expect. But if you have that why now, it's going to carry you through.
No, I appreciate that. And so to kind of deep dive into your particular situation, I recall you telling me that the very beginning, the genesis of your story was running out of breath.
It was. So I was a star high school track athlete. I went to states. I did very, very well with running. And so it kind of caught me by surprise that after my first deployment, I was running out of air when I would run. And I decided, hey, I need to go get this checked out. I went to the military doctors on base, and they looked at me. They did a brief kind of run through and said, "Well, you're fine. You're getting 90s and aboves on your PT test. Um, you seem to be functioning just fine." So they kind of just pushed me down the line and told me to keep pressing forward, and so I did.
But there was more to the story, right? Because the problem didn't go away.
Your didn't go away, and on my third deployment, I ended up getting actually a minor injury. I tore some muscles in my shoulder, and when I went to the doctor, they noticed that some of my blood pressure and different things were very, very elevated, and they said, "Hey, you need to really get this checked out." But when you get back to home station, you got 3 weeks left. We're not going to do anything here. And so I got back to home station and they said, "Well, we agree you need to get this checked out, but why don't you do it after you PCS? Because you PCS in about a month or two." So, getting through all of that, I got to Yokota Air Force Base, Japan, and got with some of the doctors there and tried to start diving into what would ultimately be a life changing experience.
After all these different opinions and advice that you had gotten from the medical community and different facilities that you had visited, there ended up being a point where you were told that you had a condition. And would you like to expand on that?
So sometimes our medical facilities are limited overseas, and we rely on our host nation. And so I went into Tokyo, saw some specialists, and this doctor, in a very polite, very non confrontational way that the Japanese have about them, told me, "You have a heart condition, something that was from your birth, and this is something that we need to take care of. And I asked him, well, am I going to need to have medication for the rest of my life, or do I just need to change my diet? And he looked at me sternly and said, I will walk you down to surgery right now.
So after that ton of bricks that landed in your lap, that in addition to the other events in your life have concluded and brought you forth to the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, just to kind of grace very serious subjects in your life. That wasn't the only medical condition that was diagnosed during your time in the Air Force. There were others as well. Yeah.
There were other additional things that, due to some of the things that happened to me medically, uh, became diagnosed. So, a vision defect, as well as a surgical brain injury, which it was the same as a traumatic brain injury that actually required surgery.
Yeah. So again, not the best news ever. Super scary, life changing, life threatening. So at that point, how did you and your family deal with this just this huge amount of information, and how did you process?
Well, if I can back up for a second, Chief, the way I processed and dealt with the news of you need immediate heart surgery, on the way back to the trains through the train station to base in Japan, I stopped at the vending machines and got a little 4 ounce Red Bull and said, "This is probably the last time I'm ever going to be able to have one, so I might as well indulge now." And I had my final energy drink that kind of powers the Air Force. Uh, Realistically, though, the way I handled it myself was not good. I went internal, and I turned a lot of things off, and that didn't help me. What did help me was my RCC, my regional care coordinator at McGuire Air Force Base in particular, Greg Newberger. He's no longer with the program, unfortunately, but man, he is an angel in disguise. He still stays in contact today, but he got down with me on the lowest level and said, "How are you?" and really got into my life and cared about me and cared about my family, and walked through every hard piece of news with us, and encouraged us, and told us, that yes, this is a hard moment, but this isn't your final moment. We're going to get through this. We're going to get you better, and we're going to get you where you need to be to have a good quality of life.
So would you say it's safe to say that after the complications with your heart, that's when first the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program reached out to you?
Yes, so I alluded to some things that didn't go quite well, and I slept through Christmas. My original surgery was mid December, and I slept through Christmas, so I ended up waking from my medical coma after about 3.5 weeks, and I found out that I had been enrolled in this program called Air Force Wounded Warrior. I was very confused. Not only was I out of it mentally from all the drugs and things that had gone on, but I said, well, I wasn't injured in combat. How can I be a wounded warrior? This doesn't make sense to me. And the RCC down in Hawaii, Cisco Johnson came to visit me, and he explained the whole program to me and said that this is not something that you are enrolled in because you're just combat wounded, but it deals with serious illnesses and traumas and sexual assaults and trauma that results from those things. And so I felt a little bit more at ease with the title of things, but still gave a little bit of pushback to the program.
So I think a lot of folks feel that way in general. I can tell you for myself, through personal testimony, I didn't really want to show off or give off the vibe of that I wasn't strong enough to do this by myself. But I am glad, especially in our previous talk, that you alluded to that your teammates on the AFW2 staff um, were there for you every step of the way, as far as counsel, as far as just hearing you out if you had questions. And in addition to that, as you made your eventual exit from the Air Force, like it wasn't a lonely path. You were educated every step of the way. And I think the goal of you and I talking today is to let other people know that whether you're returned to duty, which is always the goal, or ultimately released from duty, but with help and through this program, that people should know that this program exists. So I suppose that may be one of the reasons why you became an ambassador, but I'll let you tell me why you became one yourself.
The reason really why I became an ambassador was the personal impact that the staff, from the regional care coordinators, RCCs, to the ambassador staff, to just everybody that along the way, the mentors, they made such an impact on me and my family. The Air Force, I'm second generation. I I love what I did and would love to do it all over again if I could. But at the end of the day, I felt let down by the Air Force. And it wasn't the fault of anyone in particular, but it was just the situation that we're in. We entered into a pandemic. I had a brain surgery that was scheduled that had to get canceled due to the pandemic with no end in sight. And so the Air Force did what really was best for as far as medically retiring me. That being said, though, while I was assigned to a AMTU, which is an Airman Transition Unit, I wasn't connected with my CE brothers. CE, civil engineering, is a tight, small family community, and I didn't have that anymore. So I felt lost. I was just really drowning with all these emotions, these thoughts, and in trying to process what was going on around me. And that's where the Air Force Wounded Warrior program stepped in when, like I said, Greg, my RCC, really stepped up. Then he got me involved in some additional programs, the RAMP program, and I got a mentor who was going through some of the things that I was going through. While at McGuire, I was diagnosed with PTSD, something that I never understood, and something that, honestly, as a supervisor, I looked down on. I saw people showing a weakness, and I thought it was going to impact them and impact their career. And boy, was I wrong.
Yep, you get older, you get smarter, you get wiser, and you have more perspective, and then a lot of things make more sense. So, speaking of those things and perspective, I'm assuming, just humor me when I say this, that all of these experiences that you had gone through eventually led you to want to share your story. It's hard. It is hard to share your story. It's hard to tell people that you had things wrong with you, and again, it's even harder to do it in front of a public audience. So, what inspired you to be an ambassador then? Because you went through the training as I did.
I was inspired to be an ambassador just as I talked to my RCC and I talked to my ramp mentor. Those folks inspired me to take that next step, to get out of my comfort zone. And though, to be real honest, I'm embarrassed that I have a title of PTSD on me, and not because of that mental stigma, but because of the brothers and sisters that I know who have gone through very traumatic combat related or personal injuries that are greater than mine.
So I had conversations, obviously, in my ambassador class with that same exact subject, and the end result amongst ambassadors or any Air Force Wounded Warrior Program member or any airman who is struggling is that we can't really compare ourselves to each other. So I know that internally you may feel that way, but you and everyone else that ever feels that your problems aren't as big as the next person, the person right under you, that has a problem slightly less than you feels the same way about you. I think the holistic point of this is that we all need care when we need care, and that this program is here to help us get there. So I know you talked a little bit about both of the folks that encouraged you to be a part of the program. How was the actual training itself? Can you was it a good time? Was it scary? Was it awkward? And what could you say to lend to people's ears that may encourage them to go through training, or even apply for the program as well?
So I mentioned CE and how it's a family, and how I felt like that was kind of ripped away from me when I retired. Going through the program was eye opening to see and hear what other folks have gone through. Some of it heartbreaking, and but it brought us to that level of family again, where you got into, you got to tell the jokes, you got to pick on each other, you got to just experience life together for a week, but they're lasting connections. They're connections where we're still texting weeks later, and we're following up with each other and checking on each other. And that family aspect is something that couldn't be replaced by anything other than the ambassador program, folks who have gone through similar stories.
No, I like your perspective. I will tell you that I feel the exact same way. So let's jump to our next question for this version of Ambassador Chat, and this is now that you have gone through the training, now that you have found the comfort to share your story, right? And that you have let folks know that you felt supported, your family felt supported. Um, what do you want to do with all that? Like, how do you think that now being an ambassador will help contribute to your new mission set?
Chief, I think you touched on something really, really important there too. Is that my family felt supported. My family has been brought into the ambassador family now. My wife is joining as an ambassador as well to tell our whole family story, because it's not just about the warrior going through it. It's about the whole family that is going to be there during the recovery phase when things aren't always easy. And having that support has been incredible, and that's part of what we want to continue, is to be able to support other warriors and their families as they come through it. I know that I want to focus on ending veteran suicide. As you deal with some of these traumas, your mind goes crazy places that I never thought it would go, and helping other people process that. And if we can process that in a constructive way, in a healthy way, and find out that we're not alone and that we're not crazy, we can get through these things and be together.
No, I completely dig it, and I appreciate your answer because it's true for most. You know, we are stronger together, and honestly, programs like this, I wish were better advertised. I actually think that's why they're asking us to have this conversation. So, in your words, could you tell me, as we kind of close what we're talking about today, what can AFW2 do for you? And when I say you, I mean them, not us.
If you are critically injured, if you are wounded, are going through any type of trauma or mental health thing, please reach out. You could go to woundedwarrior.af.mil. You can self designate yourself to enroll in the program, self enroll. You can enroll troops if you have folks that need help, but they can provide that space, that family, that when you're going through the hardest struggles of your life, things that you never anticipated going through, they can provide that support for you. That is crucial. They can help just listen to your story, help you relate to what is going on, and make you feel like you're not alone. And that's important.
Tony, I appreciate your words, as I'm sure that some of the folks that are watching do just as well. And from my heart to yours, I remember when we talked originally, and you told me your story, which you're comfortable sharing, that you had a heart condition because that came from a breathing condition that led to a brain condition, right, which led to a mental condition after that. And through all of it, you've maintained your sense of resiliency. Right. And I love the fact that you don't credit it to yourself, that you credit a lot of it to the support system that you had, your family, your sons, your RCC, the group that you ended up merging with as far as through the ambassador program and Air Force Wounded Warrior. I love your story because it inspires me. I'm sure it inspires many folks to have confidence in ourselves and a program that's here to help. So, with that said, I thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to add as we again adjourn this conversation?
Thank you for having me, Chief. I would say that really the same way I started out is find your reason, find your why to press forward. For me, when I was in the hospital going through my recovery, it was my old son running up to me as I was struggling to learn to walk again and looking at me and saying, "Dad, I'm faster than you," and turning around and running down the hall. And that was my motivation. It can be it can be your kids, it can be your family, it can be your dog, whatever it is. Find that reason to keep pressing forward because the world is a better place. The Air Force is a better place with you, and you're not alone in your fight.
All right. Thanks again, Tony Russell, there for you. My name's Jason David. This has been Ambassador Chat. Hopefully, we'll see you next week as we do another one of these.